another 10 minutes? I'm going to, yes. Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to day 2 of the ITIC. My name is Paul Hoskins, a member of the ITIC team. May I invite you to take your seats, and those who are sitting at the back, please, can you be so kind as to move forward a little bit, as we are still waiting for people to arrive. Mr. Pinniger, may I invite you to take your seat? Ladies and gentlemen, if you take your seats, please. Fill up the front row seats first, if you'd be so kind. Mr. Pinniger and Mr. Sensen, please kindly take your seats. Mr. Lawless, may I invite you to take a seat with Dr. Wu? Thank you. No, I don't think you.
Okay.
You're.
But you can put on the first slide now.
Before we start, ladies and gentlemen, I'd like to invite Dr. Taleb Rifai, our ITIC Advisory Board Chairman, to come to the stage to bid you a welcome.
Good morning, everybody, and thank you so much for being with us this early. It seems like rugby is either occupying people's mind or not on their minds, one of these two extremes. Okay. Thank you so much for being with us this morning. Last night, I'm sure, was a very interesting night to all of us. I personally could not sleep. I was jumping all night, like all the Maasais. Thank you so much for being with us this morning. I'm looking forward to a very good day, like yesterday was. Fantastic day. Content is very important. Minister, thank you for being so pumped and coming on time. Thank you so much. Okay, I think we're ready to start. Paul and Philip are going to be running the show today. Yes, thank you so much, everybody. Thank you for being with us. Have a lovely London morning. Thank you.
Well, those of us that were watching the rugby earlier on, we got to the first half, and I think England was slightly behind. But let's hope that as we progress through the morning, things improve in the game. First on stage today, I'm very happy to welcome Mr. Gerald Lawless and Dr. Wu for a conversation. Gentlemen, over to you.
Thank you very much. And just because we turned off the rugby, it's not just because England is behind, but we thought that we'd better start this on stage. So good luck to both teams as we go forward this morning. But I'm going to introduce to you Dr. Adam Wu, who's going to talk to us about outward investment from China. And he has a really interesting presentation for you. We've only got 15 minutes, so you'll be pleased to hear that I'll say very little else except sit here and ask Dr. Wu to take us through what his organization is about and what the opportunities are and the relevance, of course, for us here this morning. So good morning and thank you very much for being here on your Saturday morning with the Rugby World Cup. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Lawless. And thank you, Dr. Rifa and Mr. Bartlett. You surprised me that to be here on Saturday. You know, this is, it just makes us guilty of not turning up on Saturday, but, you know, I'm very, very pleased to see people like you are still working on Saturday. And people know us, know that we do focus on two areas. One is outbound travel. That's why, you know, I know Dr. Rifa and UNWTO well, all the ministries there. But also outward investment. The reason for that is China has been a driving force of the outbound travel for as far as I believe when Dr. Rifa has been the Secretary General of UNWTO. So that's when China really started opening up in the sense that allowing individuals going abroad. But it's also driven by the state-owned companies expanding overseas by investing significantly in infrastructure throughout particularly Africa, other part of the world, but hospitality as well. And do you want me to run the presentation now? Yeah. I may just
and if you don't mind, I might from time to time interject if
absolutely,
there's some questions or something else.
And I'll just show a few only fact figures because it's very a short time so that see what the figures tells us and where the Chinese are going, literally, from now on. Because on Tuesday, we have another session on China outbound tourism during the WTM, which will focus on tourism. But today, I just want to talk more about outward investment, but related to travel. So here are the figures. Let me just, okay. So again, we are the largest outbound market now since 2012. That's according to the UNWTO figure. But this is interesting for you to see the amount spent that we spent, you know, 429 billion. This is significant in terms of spending. That's the real reason for destination to be keen on welcoming Chinese, both visitors, but investment-wise will be greater. You will see the different figures. And
Dr. Wu, can I ask you if the 154 million outbound, does that also include visitors from mainland China to Hong Kong, or is that in addition?
Correct. That's why the figure sometimes can be slightly confusing to people not in the travel business. Say, oh, we don't see as millions in UK or anywhere, because it does include the figures to Hong Kong, Macau. The reason is there's only one way for Chinese border control to tell people the real figure, which is how many people left China. So it's really some classify as border crossing. So in other words, as far as the Chinese have left China, for whatever reason, they are counted. Yeah. So that's indeed, you know, larger number used to go to Hong Kong, but not this year because this year there was a situation where.
And roughly speaking, how many, if you took Macau and Hong Kong out of the equation, what would you have then? About 75 million international outbound?
You're just about right. So I've seen a figure from Wolfgang saying that it's just about 50-50. So you know, we had 150 million. You know, the persons and times, so then 75 should be right, yeah. But we are looking at the spending power, and in comparison, really, because we are in the UK, we think that UK used to be a quite large, important outbound market, but UK come only 1, 2, 3/3, because we are spending twice as much as the Americans, and 3 times as much as the Germans. You know, they are quite large outbound market, but we are talking about the spending power. So we spend 4 times as much as the British and 6 times as much as the French, okay? So this figure did come from UNWTO. I believe this figure is quite accurate. Now, what is the interesting thing is the outward investment, because this event is about investment in tourism and so on. So the figure, last year's, I don't know why they haven't just come to the press yet, but the year before, we had 170 billion US dollars investment, overseas direct investment. So in other words, it doesn't even count those invested by let's say, foreign China states sovereign funds, because that's a financial investment. It's not counted within this. These are direct investment into companies, because you can see the very authoritative figure from the MOFCOM, which is the Ministry of Commerce from China, and the State Administration of Foreign Exchange, so they can tell exactly how much money were coming out of China to invest overseas. This figure can only be conservative because, again, a lot of Chinese companies invest not directly from China because there's still foreign currency control. They invest through the companies in Hong Kong, for example. Then the money may not count it towards it. But the number is quite accurate. You have 43,000 Chinese enterprises established within 2018 in 188 countries. So I'm sure Minister from Sierra Leone will tell that there's investment from China in Sierra Leone as well. I've been going through quite a number of countries in Africa. Everywhere I went, there roads built by the Chinese, invested. I'm not just talking about building and constructing. Mostly are funded by China as well. Both state-owned companies, but also private. So a lot of people have wrong impression thinking, oh, the Chinese state-owned companies are investing. It is fact, because we are the major projects, like the UN Tower and so on, was invested or actually funded by China, given as a gift to UN, the African Union. But there are many roads, let's say I know for sure that in Ghana, in Tanzania, and then in Nigeria, were actually built by private enterprises. These are private individuals from a certain part of China, very entrepreneur, because building a road is not a major thing for them. They build it in China, and then they went there to build the road. So this is one thing. But for major infrastructure like airlines, I do apologize for not being here yesterday to talk about the airlines. The airports, the infrastructure are very keen by the Chinese large companies, because they have seen the need of infrastructure to drive tourism. The point I want to repeat here from the Route Africa I spoke in Ghana, that just talking about Africa, not anywhere else, I'm sure you would agree anywhere else that without infrastructure, tourism cannot really, grow fast. And why China has, developed so rapidly for outbound travel, outbound investment, because think about the infrastructure. I remember during one of the ministers' summits during WTM that you were talking about the number of airports that we built. And actually, yes, this was during the meeting between Chairman Shao Qiwei from CNTA and Chairman of the WTM, that we were building so many airports and buying so many airplanes, so that these are the key, areas stimulating the tourism growth, because we have to fly. So the airport in China itself fuel the outbound flight. And of course, then we also realize that when we fly to certain destinations, for example, in the Africa, we need to build the airport as well. So I was quite pleasant surprised that when I arrived in Harare quite years ago now, that see the signs in Chinese. I thought, wow, you are well prepared for Chinese visitors. They said, well, because the Chinese built it, so there was Chinese signs when you arrive. Of course, in many airports nowadays, even in Paris, you arrive with Chinese sign on it. So coming back to the investments into the hospitality tourism. Now, this is quite important matter, because quite a large number of Chinese companies like Hainan Group and Jinjiang and so on, they were investing. Wanda is one of the largest developers that 2 years back, 2015, 2016, they were expanding rapidly. Hainan bought the Radisson Blu at that time, invested 25% in.
I think you have a slide on that coming up, have you?
I brought that one back to indicate the fact that, well, they are being told by the government to, make sure that they are not overspending, over-borrowing, they borrow too much. But they're actually transferring those assets to Jinjiang Group. Jinjiang, that's anyone in the tourism industry would know, is the biggest hotel group in China and tourism group. And they have now the stock of second largest in the world after acquiring both the Louvre Group and the Radisson Blu. So
and they're co-branding with Radisson.
Correct. They have started co-branding in June this year So you will see more Jinjiang brand coming up as well. Why that? It's linked to outbound travel because the real reason for them, those large travel companies in China, to invest in hospitality in a number of countries. I'm sure in Dubai you will see more because they are the China State's construction, which is a company building the Bahama, but they are also building a number of hotels in Dubai and even residential developments and so on. So, often Chinese companies are quite low key. They don't always shout about that we are here, or sometimes they purposely, because when we do more, the Western press, including BBC or in America in particular, they tend to take it another way, thinking, oh, we are invading Africa. We've never colonized anywhere in the world, I can't say, but we are collaborating, I would say. And but that's a different matter. So coming back just to this, again, the Belt and Road Initiative, this is very important for anyone dealing with China now, especially in terms of investment, is to join in this initiative because it was initiated by the current President Xi Jinping to encourage Chinese companies to invest in countries that do feel want to collaborate rather than, what they call Trump's policy of protectionism and so on. So that's what's Belt and Road. And you can see the distinctive increase of investment into those countries. The Belt and Road is quite a large initiative. I believe even in Jamaica or Caribbean are part of it and so on.
How many countries in total would be in the Belt and Road Initiative?
The last figure I saw was 63 countries already.
63.
Okay, and I believe this figure is increasing quite significantly very soon because even countries like Italy, because they were under pressure from USA not to join in. Suddenly they join in, then the other Western countries will follow. Okay, now here just for you to see the individuals spending money overseas as well, and that drives private investment. So for those of you have a smaller project, last night I see a few projects from Belize, they are a few millions. This would be suitable for private investors rather than large state-owned companies. And yes, here the figures, I mentioned a few of those, but if anyone wants to know those fact figures, you can always leave your business card, I can email to you, and or come to our China.
And we have copies of your presentation as well that we can give to you we'll work it with Dr. Wu.
Yes, please, that's then approach them. But the interesting thing to see, Jinjiang now even owns 12% of Accor Group. So many times we don't really know that those major brands have money from China. So Chinese companies investing not just to build another hotel. We do though. Bahama has completed, I believe, and those were invested and of course built by Chinese. Those tend to be known, but otherwise we tend to invest in those existing properties, either co-branding it or just improving those properties with more Chinese influence.
Do you see then eventually a Chinese brand like Jinjiang actually going international in its own name rather than also necessarily having to have another name like Accor brands? Do you see a self-branding?
Very good question. I posed the same question to two of their senior vice presidents, one for investments, one actually looking after all those in Europe for Louvre and so on, that's during ITB last year. And they said this: first of all, Jinjiang always respects what they acquired, the existing brand. So that's why the Louvre still kept all the brand, Golden Tulips and so on. That's why most of us sitting here may not know that Jinjiang is behind the Louvre. There's thousands of properties there. Even Accor is something that few people know that there's money in it. And when Hainan invested in the NH Hotel, they didn't shout about, say, we own it or so on. But coming back to Jinjiang in terms of branding, because it's a very good name in China already, those who have been to China would know that in Shanghai, I have colleagues from Shanghai, they will tell one of the earliest big brands is the Jinjiang Tower and so on. That's where Deng Xiaoping even stood up on that tower, and then during Mao Zedong time, Jinjiang was already there. It's a very old brand. It's one of the oldest brands in the tourism industry in China. So they are the largest travel-related company, travel hospitality or tourism company based in Shanghai, because there's a bigger one from Beijing, CITS and China National Tourism Group now. But they are co-branding with Radisson now. So Radisson Jianjiang will be called.
Yeah. We have 5
Yeah.
minutes.
Okay. So coming back to our fields of the hospitality there. So Bahama was the one example of 2.4 billion investment from China Exim Bank and constructed by China State Construction. That completes now, which is good news. But the acquisition by an insurance company of Astoria Waldorf was on the news for a long time, but now it's under renovation now, so it's still going on. But it's one of the exceptions. Really.
Quite a record, wasn't it?
It's yeah.
Price per bedroom.
Exactly. So Mr. Lawless would tell that, in the hospitality, for one single hotel to be sold for 1.95 billion is a huge amount, and they are spending 150 million for renovation as well. Now, this may be a question you want to ask, how to reach those Chinese investors. Now, obviously, for major infrastructure projects and so on, reaching the authorities necessary. Mr. Bartlett would have experienced, your colleagues from different embassies, the ministries, to China and so on, putting those major projects to the Chinese authorities necessary. That's why I'm glad some ministers here, and you may want to work with your Ministry of Finance and so on, to get the Chinese, the tourism sector, is only to give comments on the prospects of the destination that will attract the Chinese, for example, Dubai, UAE. They've done a great job in showing to the Chinese authorities how many Chinese are coming there, and then Chinese will benefit from the further investments. So are others. So we are investing not just for the Chinese, but as a backup, so that if others not coming, we will stay there. That's
Very
something. Good. Okay, and of course the other most cost-effective ways to make your information, at least in Chinese, because the real shortcoming of us is disadvantage, I would say, is the lack of language. Because again, very senior officials in China, very few speak foreign language. They require everything in Chinese. If you ever want to present your projects and so on to either the state-owned companies or even private investors, you need to have your presentation in Chinese. So obviously, we don't expect you to start learning. You may want to learn Chinese, but people like us, we do support those also.
Now we understand there's a second Great Wall of China. Not just one. You have two Great Walls of China.
Yes, so this is coming up to say that many of you may have said that, we got a website in Chinese. Yesterday on another event, they said, we got even this and that. But again, those have been to China knowing we have a great firewall of China blocking the information, certain information, I would say, but it's a way searching. If your information even translated into Chinese but not hosted in China, we can't easily search for you.
Like a Gmail, will it work in China?
Not officially, unless you use VPN. So that's why even when I'm in China, my Gmail doesn't always receive, because again, Google is not allowed. So Gmail is part of Google, then unfortunately just have problem there. So it's something, it's a technical.
It's worth knowing.
Exactly. And this is just showing you one of the reasons we are here, because we operate the China Invest Overseas portal, which provide the information for the investors in China, both state-owned companies, individual investors, but also, of course, the foreign other destinations, or the destination promotion authorities, I would say that the investment promotion authorities in particular, but also project owners. To make your information available, we can translate and make it available. We actually send out to would-be investors, so that's to facilitate you in reaching out to those investors, and then welcome you to China, for example, to meet up with those investors. This is the event we did in London just a couple of years ago, very successful, that one. Yeah. And then, of course, other investment authority or tourism authority, we help them with the investment forum. These were ambassadors from, if anyone from South America, there's four of them, and the Minister consulates all there. And we do take the Chinese to overseas. This group of Chinese investors I took to Puerto Rico, actually. A number of them have been investing there in both land, properties, and one of them is going to build a hotel, so which is good news. And then, of course, if any one of you need support, you can always approach me after this. Okay.
And we need to do something better than Xie Xie and Ni Hao.
Yes, so that's another, not 15-minute talk, because we do have training sessions in different countries for both local suppliers in tourism sector or investors on when you approach Chinese, how to approach them, how to conduct business, but also be patient is one another thing, because often Chinese, particularly state-owned companies, react very slowly because they are also observing, say, what the state, the policies going, then the easiest way, we normally say to the Chinese, as we do, is to see what the government is doing. When Xi Jinping goes to any country, and when the Belt and Road policy go in country, we know for sure for the next 20 or 30 or 50 years, you got safe. That's how we feel. And the Chinese companies or individuals tend to follow where the government points out and so on. I'm glad that any one of you sitting here probably in the country is more welcoming Chinese investment than what Trump says yes, so he says he wants. This policy doesn't always start up, okay?
Well, we didn't invite him here today, so that's all right. But Dr. Wu, thank you so much. I think it's really a very interesting presentation, and we appreciate very much you being here.
Thank you.
And can I ask, will you be staying around for some time this morning?
Yes, I'm here. And
So
there are a
Dr.
couple
Wu
of
will be
Chinese
here, so-
also coming from China that if you want to talk to us.
Excellent. Thank you so much. Thank you very much. Thank you.
Gerald, thank you, Adam, Dr. Wu. So now, ladies and gentlemen, just so that you know the new format after the start with the rugby, our schedule will take us up to about 11:25 when we'll have the morning break. But now it's my pleasure to invite Rajan Datta back to the stage to moderate our next hour of sessions, Financing Tourism and Travel Development Projects. And I'll let Rajan introduce those who are coming on stage. Rajan.
Good morning, everybody. How are you feeling? Was anybody here for the dinner last night? Yes, you were, weren't you? And lots of you were, actually, yeah. It was great, wasn't it? The dancers, the singers were amazing. Edmund, you should have been there. By the way, just coming off the back of that, it did occur to me, China, everyone talks about China. India, why isn't India a big investor? Well, exactly, yeah. I think we should think about this in the future, because actually Dimitris' presentation yesterday, he was talking about how the Indian population is going to be bigger than the Chinese population by 2030. Indian middle classes are huge, and they're growing, except there's something different here. I think this is worthy of a discussion in the future. Indian investment. What is India about? We'll come back to that. Right, this is about the islands. This whole conference is about Africa and the islands, and we're going to have presentations by 4 islands who are going to just basically tell you why you should finance and invest in them. So let me just start by asking to come on stage. First of all, Martin George from St. Helena. Now, St. Helena, 4,500 people population. Interesting. Only had TV in 1994, which means they missed out on an awful lot of stuff, didn't they? Mobile phones. When was mobile phones? 2014. Thank you. Anyway, Martin, off you go.
Right, good morning, ladies and gentlemen. Again, it's a privilege to be here to represent St. Helena and promote St. Helena Island as a new tourism and investment destination. What I'm going to do is, as a springboard, just reflect on yesterday's themes and, of course, our panel discussion pre-lunch as well, obviously because we ran out of time. Firstly, we're an overseas UK territory. We are one of a group of 3. So Ascension Island is our sister island, and Tristan da Cunha. But also we have a strong direct link to the Falkland Islands. And what we're already achieving is that we see the South Atlantic, those islands, as a new developing region as well, in terms of various aspects. Just to repeat our key message, which you will find in our investment prospectus, and that is St. Helena is on a journey towards becoming a green and blue island destination with a digital and tourism-driven economy. A lot of facets of sustainability is included in that. But to tell you how we went about planning this, our strategy, our methodology, our approach, is that that message was developed from what was what is our Ireland Sustainable Economic Development Plan, which was endorsed in 2018. In that plan, the opportunities, the investment opportunities and growth industries was identified and established by the people of St. Helena, not my organization, not the government. The investment prospectus, and like I'll continue to do, everything is in there. It will tell you the St. Helena story, the history, the culture, the people, the rural environment, the marine environment, which is our unique selling points, as well as the policies and strategies in place, and also the incentives available for investors. Our approach to welcoming investments right here, right now, we're dealing with about 17 inquiries within the past week. Again, looking at our isolation, how significant are we on the global scene, but we've already got 17 interests since 2 weeks ago when we launched the investment prospectus. What are we showcasing? Pristine, clear, clean waters. One of the largest marine protected areas in the world, 200 nautical miles. Clear blue skies, virtually unpolluted, and its people and the rural environment. The caliber of investment we're welcoming is one that is looking to do business with the locals. So partnerships is key, collaboration is key, and we're seeing this as an equitable approach to the development of St. Helena. The core industries is obviously tourism, but also there's significant potential in academia, research and conferencing, agriculture, fishing, and in particular, and I'll come back to that, the digital economy as well as your other traditional trades and industries. Linking back to yesterday, Dimitri asked the audience a question about what do we have to do for the next 10 years with the focus being on 2030. What you will see in the investment prospectus is that whilst we're thinking about 2030, we're doing that with 2050 in mind. Given the pace at which the world is changing and everything that we spoke about yesterday, investments that we're encouraging and the journey we're beginning is actually with 2050 in mind. And there's some core outcomes or aspirations that we've communicated in the investment prospectus. Incentives, that's what the investors always look for. So first and foremost, a little bit unusual, a little bit quirky if you like. There's no VAT applied in St. Helena. We have a very political, stable government or community. We're a democratic Ireland as well. The concessions, we offer concessions in import duty, also a reduction in corporation tax, and we're applying that to a 5-year period, and obviously with a long-term objective in mind, if that makes sense. Napoleon, everybody knows St. Helena because of the Napoleonic product. But again, the investment prospectus will capture, I think what we tend to forget is the intangible aspects about the destination. So with the intangible, we then project the tangible for both locals, our diaspora overseas, and any potential investor interest. Our star products for the moment, Talib had the honor of having 5 minutes with him yesterday afternoon. We presented a little goodie bag from St. Helena that was made from recycled newspapers. The content was St. Helena coffee, one of the rarest coffees in the world. It's stocked at Harrods for a few £100 per kilo. Premium tuna, we've started to export premium tuna to the market. Linking back to 200 nautical miles as a marine protected area and an exclusive economic zone, we are operating a 1-by-1 fishery, and that's a sustainable method for fishing. The other opportunity we see potential for, because of the beauty and one of the key positives of our isolation, is honey. The export of honey, but also queen bees, given the situations faced by various jurisdictions around the world. So we see the export of queen bees and also honey as being an export market. Okay. What is key to the investment in St. Helena? The locals. They're the experts on the ground, which is why it makes sense. It's a no-brainer. If we can marry good responsible investors with local investors or partners, then I think it's a win-win. So that's the key message that we're here to deliver in London this year. I'm going to echo again, please visit the website, the Investor Prospectus, it's all there. It's one go-to place and it tells you everything. The other thing, given the theme of today's conference, we didn't bring any printed collateral with us. Everything is digital. Small Ireland, constrained by resources. Yes, we do need your money and the right kind of money and the right kind of attitude. But even with limited resources, we've tried to embrace the world as it is now and how it's moving. So we've gone digital. We've got more USBs, and we're happy to engage on a verbal level. Before we go into, because I'm mindful of time, the presentation of one of our promo videos, which is our landscape, and this is links back to the Green and Blue Island destination. Can I just say some of the things we were talking about yesterday? So St. Helena's population gender ratio is about 50-50. But in terms of occupation, there's twice as many females as there are males as professionals in St. Helena. We don't really have a hard policy. It's normal. It doesn't matter your color, creed, or your sex, or your gender. In terms of executive management, that's the beauty about having a small population. There's one more female than there is male in executive positions on the island. Linking a little bit to the inequality goal, for the first time ever in St. Helena's history, the second in command on St. Helena is a local, and she's female. So the island's chief secretary is female. First time in our history, the island's financial secretary, which is equivalent to the treasurer here in the UK, is a saint, male. Myself, my organization, this role was previously occupied by overseas personnel, so I'm the first saint director of investment in St. Helena. So I think in terms of, we talk about policy and make sure future-proofing the good things, what I want to get across and link back to yesterday is that a lot of the applied norms in St. Helena is already there. We're now actually realigning that to what is global agenda items. And we're looking at it from not only 2030, but 2050, and we've started that journey. Just so that we're not, or so that I don't put you asleep, my organization is about 30 strong. We are responsible and are the only economic department or entity on the island. We're at arm's length from government. We receive a little bit of aid from the UK via DFID, and then we generate some of our own income through commercial assets or properties. Out of the 30, I'm one of 5 males in that organization. All the rest are female. Tourism officers, business team, and the investment team. So again, another indicator, but also it can be tricky for the 5 men to have a sustained conversation for any period of time in our organization. So there's a little bit of context about St. Helena, where we are, the investment opportunities, and yes, there are means and significant opportunity from a tourism angle in projects, and there are incentives there. The time is right now to invest in St. Helena, but not only for 2050, but also 2030, but for 2050. If the video is ready to cue. Yep, it is. Okay.
Yeah.
What you're going to see is St. Helena. This is the beauty about St. Helena. What you're going to see is what a lot of people saw in 1502 when the island was discovered.
At the top of a mountain in the sea.
South of the equator if you're north, and if you're in the south, you're almost there.
Even if you go on the map and look, you wouldn't find it.
It's hard to explain because it's just a little tiny dot. This island, it just sits in paradise.
Jewel in the Atlantic. The place for a holiday. If you want to come to St. Helena.
I think it's nice for people to come and visit, get to know our little old place, being so far out in the middle of the ocean, as they say.
To know about St. Helena, you have to come here.
St. Helena special. It's the climate, the isolation, the landscape. You got stark coastline, high cliffs jutting out of the sea, but in the middle you got this tranquil green paradise.
This island is such a beautiful island. Beautiful hills, surrounded by this beautiful ocean.
Marine environment is probably a bit different. There are quite a variety of endemic species. We've always had whale sharks here. I can't explain the feeling of seeing one and being in the water with one, yes.
I don't think there's a lot of people who know how special this island is to the world. They can see stuff on this little tiny island in the middle of the South Atlantic where they couldn't see in the rest of the world. If heaven's like this, then I want to go.
I've got to say, that is a really good video, isn't it? It actually sells it really well. Can I ask from sheer ignorance, before now, what was the economy of St. Helena? What was it depending on before like you started going into tourism?
It's a very good question. The only, obviously it's a very small internal economy. Before now, there was a little bit of tourism, so the air access to St. Helena is 2 years old, literally almost to the day, 2 years old. Before that, it was a journey via the Royal Mail ship St. Helena, which took 5 nights one way from Cape Town. So we've moved from what was roughly about 30 tours every 3 weeks coming to St. Helena, so obviously nowhere near the numbers we've been talking so far in terms of mass tourism, to now the first year of airport opening, we saw just over 5,000 visitors for that first year. So a lot of what we're doing is about incremental development, and with that comes the conservation and preservation of what is St. Helena. The only export with some longevity to it in terms of the economy has always been coffee. So that dates back to the 1980s, 1970s actually, and it was actually presented to the Queen herself at Buckingham Palace. And of course fish. But now with their access, we're able to export premium tuna, fresh premium tuna, straight to the market. And we've already started that in South Africa. And also what we learned from our colleagues or discussions we've had in South Africa is that even though tuna is a migratory species, there's not enough of it because it's a highly sought after product. So, and because of the waters in St. Helena, the temperatures, it's very, very high quality tuna. So, yeah, we're pretty much dependent on UK aid, or has been in the past. We're looking to change that through a commercial approach, through partnerships with investors, and that be local, foreign, or even our diaspora. Our population is circa 4,300, but we know an estimation was made in 2013 that our saints offshore would total upwards of 11,000. So even if we could track some of our own people back and protect our identity, our DNA, hence the reason for our approach for partnership investments, because we don't want to dilute what is St. Helena, and that is its people.
Interesting, really interesting. Queen bees as well.
Yes.
interesting. We have a problem in the world with bees. You've got bees.
We've got bees, and actually our organization, in partnership with the agriculture division of the local government, in partnership with the St. Helena Beekeepers Association, we're funding right now the research of our queen bees, because we would like to claim that it's disease-free because of our isolation. So that adds to the value, it adds to the success rate if it becomes an export product.
I buy into that. That's pretty good. Yep. Okay. Yes, Talib, sorry. Connectivity. Yes, we need to talk about connectivity. Tell me about that.
Absolutely. So I'm going to put this into date order, and it's in the investment prospectus. So we've got a timeline. So it's now 2019, 2020. In 2021, we're celebrating or commemorating the death of Napoleon, bicentenary. So it's a massive event on a global stage. There's already significant PR from France and also French-speaking nations, and it's a one-year-long program. So please look at that concept. But in 2022, in terms of sustainability, it's in the prospectus. We're committed. The Ireland 4,300 and all in operating and trading environments will be supplied by energy that is 100% renewable. So how did we start that journey, even with that aspect, and contributing to what is also the SDGs? We believe that the PPP that we're still just finalizing could be a model that could be learned or utilized elsewhere, perhaps, especially in other small, emerging, developing island states. And then in 2021, the subsea cable will come ashore in St. Helena. So that's the fiber optic cable that will link the European continent with Africa. So right now, our technological or digital connection is via satellite. It's slow, it's mega expensive, but that's going to change. And if anything, in terms of a small community like St. Helena, it's much more of a game changer than the airport is. So that's one of our key areas for investment, and that is the ICT world and the digital economy. And also for our audience, every area or facet or growth industry or opportunity I'm communicating here today, they are underpinned by strategies, policies. So for example, I mentioned the SCDP, the Sustainable Economic Development Plan, or we have the investment policy, and we have the investment strategy. And it's across all facets, and that's the model. So there's a framework for each area that we've identified growth potential.
Intriguing. So, please ask Talib, please ask a question.
How do you get there?
Yeah.
Thank you. So air access via Johannesburg. So every Saturday for 12 months of the year, you fly from Johannesburg with a stopover in Walvis Bay to refuel to St. Helena, and it's a 6-hour journey. What that gives the visitor or even the business visitor coming in, or even returning saints, as we call ourselves, a week on the island. What's different and what is starting in a month's time is that we will introduce a midweek flight from Cape Town. So then you're adding to the destination and the options. So it's now that either you have a 7-day or a 3-4 day experience in St. Helena or longer. The flights back the way from St. Helena, regardless if it's Johannesburg or Cape Town, is direct, and it takes 4 hours. So from London, you would have to come via Johannesburg or Cape Town from December to February. I think also, and again, if we could link this back to sustainability and carbon, what we also have started is the concept of twinning destinations. And therefore, you have 2 destinations that reap the benefits. Whilst for the traveler, you're investing in one journey. So the carbon traveling from the UK down to Johannesburg, as rather that being a one-off holiday, why not make it 2 destinations and save you a repeat journey? So we're working towards twinning destinations as well.
Just one last question. Young people in St. Helena, are they staying there, or are they always wanting to leave? How does it work?
Very good question. You tend to see that the majority would like to leave once they completed their schooling. So schooling in St. Helena is up to A level, and then there's a few scholarships, mainly with the UK universities here. But a lot of them tend to leave because of the opportunities in the outside world. The thing is, though, that we're very, very clingy to our roots. So at some stage, I know I mentioned there's about over 11,000 in our diaspora, but a lot of our saints do come back home at some stage. And it's like any destination, there's that generation shift. But right now, the millennials, yes, we're seeing them go off island, but there's some that are committed because of New St. Helena. And they're going off to acquire a skill set and even additional resource or capacity to come back to the island. And of course, it's very critical about the capacity or the carrying capacity of St. Helena that will ensure the sustainability of our island as it is now. And that's the other thing. We're not mass tourism. We're not a luxury destination. What we're selling, like you saw in the video, is adventure and experience. And the pillars are history and culture, raw and marine environments.
Fascinating. Absolutely fascinating. Really, really interesting. Thank you, Martin, very much indeed. Right, we're going to stay there. We're going to move on to the Bahamas and Joy. Yes, I know you're there because I talked to you earlier on. Let's see what the Bahamas story is.
Good morning, everyone. It's a pleasure to be here again. And yesterday I had an opportunity, I guess, to provide a teaser of investment opportunities in the Bahamas. And this morning I will give you a little bit more detail as to how easy it is to invest in our beautiful country. It is often said, a picture paints 1,000 words, and for that reason I will share some images just to show the beauty of the destination. And I think this is pertinent because as I listened to you speak, and talk about St. Helena, there were so many similarities. And when we speak of various destinations and we hear about the commonalities and the similarities in look, feel, even what we're promoting, we really need to look for that thing that differentiates us and that makes us an attractive destination. Technology, and one of the things we pride ourselves on in the Bahamas is technology, but lo and behold, it just didn't work today. This was going to be a video to set it off, and what it speaks to is our new brand campaign, Fly Away. But it shows the beauty of the Bahamas. And I think whilst I just have this image up and to talk about it, for those of you who were here yesterday, you would have heard me say, and for those who weren't, while I serve currently as the Director General of Tourism, I was for 9 years the Director of Investments with responsibility for all foreign direct investment in the Bahamas. And so I take pride in the fact that I sat at the table as we negotiated phases 3 and 4 of the Atlantis project and all of Baha Mar. Baha Mar, the gentleman who spoke earlier, that was 10 years of my life, and I equated to a pregnancy and that baby I couldn't deliver. So every time I see it, I'm the proudest mama possible. So as we move along, I want to put this slide up just to explain the geography of the Bahamas. And I think this is particularly relevant as we've just coming on the heels of Hurricane Dorian. And it was amazing how across the world, even our neighbors just in Florida in the United States of America had no understanding that the Bahamas consists of 700 islands, over 2,000 keys, spread across 100,000 square miles. And so our most northern island is approximately 50 miles off the coast of West Palm Beach in Florida, and our most southern island is equidistant to Cuba. And so I would say to people, if you look at the sheer scale, the fact that you had a hurricane that impacted two of our northern islands, there was no way that islands central or south in the Bahamas would be impacted. And so the map really just shows proximity to our major source market, the United States of America, and of course proximity to Florida. So we consider the Bahamas a prime investment jurisdiction. And the flamingos, the photos, while they're absolutely beautiful, a little known fact about the Bahamas, that in the Americas, we have the largest flamingo colony in the world. No one realizes that. And it is the national bird of the Bahamas. And so just to add that there, to give a trivia question, if it comes up, you now know the answer. But things that we promote is that we are a stable, democratic government. We've had one, again, the oldest democracy in the Western world outside of the United Kingdom. And I should know the date, but I do know that it is the oldest one, and that can be fact-checked. We have a sound fiscal, economic, and monetary policy, and a stable currency. We use the dollar, and our dollar is on par with the US dollar, so there is parity with the dollar. We have a modern and well-regulated financial services sector, and a world-class open ship registry. In fact, the third largest ship registry in the world. And what's important, particularly for investors, is that we do have a clearly defined national investment policy. There are so many linkages between tourism and investment in the Bahamas. Tourism is the number one pillar of our economy. In fact, approximately 50% of our GDP comes from tourism, and that's reflected in employment. That's if we look beyond just direct contribution, but indirect and induced, that number goes up considerably, and some figures put it as high as 60%. And so most of our investment tends to be in the tourism sector. And so that's why you'll see that there is a lot of synergy and linkages to the tourism sector in this presentation, because it's a tried and tested model, one that works, and a lot of interest from people to invest in the tourism sector. So there are targeted investment incentive legislation to promote the development in tourism. Again, just to emphasize the proximity to the source market in North America, but equally Latin America. It's easily accessible by both air and sea. And I should add that one of our islands, Grand Bahama, has a very well-established not only shipyard, but it's a ship terminal. So for transshipment opportunities, it really serves at the crossroad between Latin America and North America. And after the Panama Canal, I think it has the capacity to hold largest, I'm going to get it right, and I know one of my colleagues in the audience probably can correct me, but I think it's P-MAX class of vessels for transshipment. We have a strong brand recognition, and this is so important for people wanting to invest, to know that the brand that they're associating with is well recognized. And the diversity of product in terms of the multiplicity of islands. So it's not just the well-known islands, but there are so many other islands that are just ripe for investment opportunities. And very, very importantly, the availability of skilled labor. I spoke a moment ago about a well-defined national investment policy. This sets out for any potential investor the do's and don'ts of investing in the Bahamas. And again, in this new era, all of it is online digitally, www.bahamas.gov.bs/BIA, and I'll give that out again, but it is all available. But there is the prioritization and encouragement of foreign investment, particularly in the touristic and resort sector, marinas, condominiums, timeshares, and second home development. There's a very flexible immigration policy for investors coming in and wanting to bring in highly skilled, their labor at a highly skilled and specialized level. There's also the facilitation of local joint ventures. In fact, that's actively promoted. We look for investors who wish to partner with locals, as well as public-private sector partnerships. That is highly sought after. And this is important for a lot of investors. No impositions on capital gains, corporate earnings, or dividends. And I'm just going to ask you to take note. When you see photos that are coming up of all the Bahamians, there's a commonality in each of those photos. And when I say a picture tells 1,000 words, this is something that's intrinsic to Bahamians, but you will note it's just a natural. They all smile, and it's one thing that people talk about when they come to the Bahamas. It's the most smiley set of people, and it's only when we're looking at photographs we say, you're right, we all smile in photos. So even a policeman is smiling. He can't help himself. But all investments are dealt with through the Bahamas Investment Authority. This is a one-stop shop set up to deal with all applications for investments. It sits within the office of the Prime Minister because that is the priority that it is given within the Bahamas. And its role, the role of the BIA, is to promote investment, develop investment policies, facilitate the investment process, evaluate any project that it comes before them, coordinate the approval guideline, and monitor and lend support to the investor during the process. So tourism incentives and related legislation, again, my co-panelist, he said that's the one thing people want to know about. We're always asked, what incentives are available? What makes it attractive? And we have a very, very healthy, generous suite of investment incentives. The ones, if you're looking from a tourism perspective, the Hotels Encouragement Act, and this provides duty-free concessions on all building materials. So anything that you would need to be imported to build a hotel, and if you think that ordinarily they would attract a duty of between 35 to 40%, that's a considerable concession. But it also allows an investor to bring in everything that's needed to furnish a property, a hotel resort, or other development. We have the Bahamas Vacation Plan and Time Sharing Act that deals with timeshares, Value-Added Tax Act, rules and regulations, Real Property Tax Act, which is a great one because that provides for 20-year exemption on real property tax for any hotel property that's being developed. And the International Persons Landholding Act deals with the purchase of property in the Bahamas by a non-Bahamian. So whether you're purchasing it for your personal use as a second home, vacation home, or as an investment property. So the Ministry of Tourism, our role is we look to work in synergy with investors, particularly those that are dealing in the touristic sector. We work hand in hand through destination marketing, advertising, and sales, obviously industry facilitation and growth, and for product quality and support. Tourism infrastructure. This is important when you're dealing with an archipelago, so an expanded and upgraded airports, and there are over 25 international airports. Try managing that when you're a population of 400,000. So this is one of the headaches for a government dealing with an archipelagic nation. 16 of those are ICAO standard, and every investor who wants to go to some sleepy island with 10 people, first question they ask government, will you build an airport? My eyes roll, and they roll from the point of view that it costs a lot of money to build an airport and make it ICAO standard. So we try and guide people to those areas where there is already an international airport. But there are improved public ports and docks. modern roadways, utility service, including telecoms, cable, and internet. Modern medical facilities, which is essential for a tourism destination, and everything that would support tourism development. Okay. And so this is some of the types of developments that have happened across the board. Again, gateway, ease of travel, how do you get there? And so that shows how you can get to the Bahamas, direct airlift from North America, Latin America, Europe, airlines, and that gives stats, happy to share with anyone if they need to know, so that if you say you're going to invest in the Bahamas, you can see what the value, what your numbers are, what you're looking at. And new and improved hotels, there are more options to get there, deals and packages, and there's something for everyone. And as I close, we're looking for transformative development in the Bahamas. The airport, new upgraded airport in our capital, we're about to do the same for the port of Nassau, and that is what the Bahamas is looking for. So I'd be happy to talk further to anyone who may have questions. Thank you all very much indeed.
I have a load of questions I want to ask you, and I'm sure they're from the floor, but we are pressed for time slightly, so I'm sure there are questions we can ask at the end of the day, and of course when people talk to you afterwards. Belize is next, I believe, I've been told. Correct. And can I please welcome on the stage Diane Hernandez. You're not Diane Hernandez, are you? Yes, it is happening to me a lot.
Okay, hello, good morning, everyone. My name is Gian Hernandez, so that was close. I'm an investment associate at Beltrade. That's the National Investment Promotion Agency for Belize. So firstly, I'd like to thank the organizers for the prompt addition to the program. I'd also like to acknowledge our Director of Tourism, Mrs. Karen Bevins from the Belize Tourism Board, and also my colleague, Mr. Sean Tang from the Belize Tourism Board as well. So again, Belize is a small country, both in population and size, with large ambitions. So there are several competitive advantages in investing in Belize, all of which investors love. We are truly a bilingual nation. First of all, let me say that Belize is located in Central America. It's bordered by Guatemala and Mexico, and it just serves as an investment hub, as it's been called, from North America, linking to South America, and also serving as a bridge to the Caribbean as well. So Belize is actually, another fun fact is that Belize is the only English-speaking country in Central America. That's our first language, actually. And also, we are a bilingual nation. Due to our neighbors, we also speak Spanish as well. So there are a lot of advantages, such as stable currency as well. When it comes to competitive incentive programs, which I'll mention in a few as well, and of course, a stable government. And who can forget our young and vibrant labor force, like our Caribbean counterparts as well. So, as I mentioned, Belize is strategically located as well in terms of connectivity, only 2 hours away from major US markets, and also similarly around 2 hours away from Central American counterparts as well. As you can see, in terms of a small nation, we are approximately 400,000 inhabitants, with an area of 8,867 square miles, roughly. And you can see here is just a brief snapshot of Belize in numbers, basically. As you can see, we have one of the world's most competitive wages as well. And of course, investors take a look at this and they like it, but they also pay higher just to make sure they remain competitive in the market as well, regardless of the sector we're dealing with. So, tourism and leisure. So, as the National Investment Promotion Agency in Belize, we deal with a lot of sectors, not just tourism. We deal with energy, agriculture, fisheries and aquaculture, and several others. But tourism is our largest one, contributing approximately 38.1% to our GDP and employing an enormous amount of individuals with, of course, many other spill-off effects as well. It is a robust sector that keeps on growing. Actually, we've been exponentially experiencing growth for the past 5 years. It is a sector that's committed to maintaining its authenticity by appealing to low density, high value. So Belize has a National Sustainable Tourism Master Plan 2030. It's called the NSTMP 2030 for short. And basically what it does is that it sets specific goals for the industry. It serves as a framework which is developed by the government in agreement with stakeholders, of course, to better guide the industry and set specific goals specifically for 2030. So it appeals to low density, high value. And what this means is that what makes us so distinct in Belize is that as opposed to taking a keen interest in large hotel developments, for example, we appeal to smaller scale hotels mostly. Those boutique hotels that would be small in scale but offer luxury value as well. Some brands that you'll see in the next slide include brands like the Hilton, Curio by Hilton, the Marriott's we facilitated as well, and the Four Seasons hotel that's up and coming at Key Chapel, which is our island off the coast of Belize. So it's a very strong sector, and of course there are many other subsectors within, like medical tourism as well, that appeals to a lot of individuals from the US actually when it comes to offering high quality but cheaper medical services in Belize. So there are many other variables that we consider as well for this sector. Specifically, this sector is so attractive because it includes several tourism products. So it includes products like cultural, nature-based, sun and beach, leisure and entertainment, and cruise and nautical. And all of these products offer specific investment opportunities for investors. As I mentioned, medical tourism is up and coming as well, so it's also attractive to invest in that. And the other interesting thing that really distinguishes Belize from many other nations and many other counterparts is the profiles. So Belize is so unique in the sense that it offers different profiles across the country. So for example, this definitely appeals to experience-based tourists. Those who are seeking, for example, let's say a tourist comes to Belize and they're seeking to snorkel in what we call the largest living barrier reef in the world. They can do so. If they would like to go hiking or to go for a Maya ruin site tour, they can also do so. And all of these sites are just about 2 to 3 hours away from each other, making it the perfect package for those who are seeking to invest in these natural attractions. As you can see, there are several other destination profiles. There's the reef, there's the southern coast as well. There's also won awards for leading beach destinations, World Travel Awards. That's specifically around an area called Placencia. And basically, it serves as a more broad spectrum of investment opportunities for investors seeking to expand in country as well. So this is just a quick snapshot of the data. So some of our KPIs, our key performance indicators, include overnight tourist arrivals. They include cruise passenger arrivals as well, and as you can see, there has been exponential growth throughout the years. You can see that we had record-breaking numbers from the most recent data received by the Belize Tourism Board. Those are double-digit figure increases as well in the industry. Those are some of the brands that we facilitated in the past and recently, actually. We're very excited about Four Seasons. That's something we've been working closely with as well. In terms of room stock, this is just a quick overview of the investment opportunities in the hotel industry. As you can see, there are different areas that would have different hotel stock, room stock, and also average room rate. As you can see, areas like San Pedro, off the coast of Belize, those would be some of the areas that are most popular when it comes to investments, when it comes to tourist visits as well. But also you can see in southern Belize where we have a lot of attractions as well in terms of Mayan heritage, in terms of the cultural aspect of the country. You can see that the rate is also high, but the room stock is a lot lower, opening the doors for a lot of investment opportunities as well in that area. So as I mentioned, there are several investment opportunities within each product. Of course, there is the continued sun and beach investment. There is continued investment in ecotourism as well, because as I mentioned, we have unique profiles that investors can branch into. You can see that there is the potential investment in the cruise as well, in the nautical sector, and many others as well. So now, just to speak briefly, of course, I was just allotted a brief amount of time to discuss the sector with you. But if you are interested, please feel free to discuss with us thereafter. We will be here, the Belize Tourism Board will be here as well. And also just to mention briefly on the incentive programs that we have in Belize. Beltrade administers two incentive programs for investors. The applicable one for the tourism industry is a fiscal incentive program, that's what we call it. It's a 5-year program that offers benefits in the form of custom duty exemptions upon imported items for any tourism-related product in country. It's also applicable for different sectors, but we see that it really does help investors who are seeking to invest in the hotel industry specifically. So any items that you'd like to bring in, equipment, materials, construction materials specifically, vehicles, all of these things that could be used for the development, custom duty-free for a period of 5 years, with up to renewal for an additional 10 years as well, so of course upon justification. The government showed its commitment to the industry by going even further and creating a cabinet subcommittee for investments, to which we are the secretariats for. It's a ministerial body that basically takes the time to negotiate with investors with large-scale development projects. Of course, there's a specific criteria which I can share with you, who are seeking to invest in Belize and are seeking concessions that go beyond the fiscal incentive program. So any concessions that are outside of this, they automatically get considered by the CSCI, that's what we call it, for consideration. And we work with you to make sure you get the service you need to invest in country. And that's our commitment. So if you have any questions thereafter, please feel free. Of course, we'll have a panel session as well, and just keeping time in mind. If you have questions to the Belize Tourism Board, we will be here. And if you ever think of visiting Belize, let us know as well, and we'll facilitate for you, okay? Thank you.
Take a seat. And forgive me, I didn't actually, what was your name? You should say your name. Thank you. You can tell everybody else as well. Because I was given the wrong name. It's on.
Hello. Okay. It's Gian Hernandez. That's my name. And of course, we can discuss after. So if you're interested, I can repeat it again.
So it is Gian Hernandez. Oh. I can say one thing. 38.1% of GDP is tourism. That is pretty damn high, isn't it? I can't think of many other countries. Anyone know of a higher? Possibly they exist, but that's pretty big, isn't it? Yeah.
Absolutely.
Well, yes, apart from the Bahamas. But it's high. And also, I've actually been to the coral reef in Belize, and it's amazing. Yeah. It is absolutely amazing.
It is. And one of our main attractions, of course, is snorkeling as well. And we were considered the second largest barrier reef after Australia. But of course, because of the deterioration over time, unfortunately, we are now the largest attraction in terms of all of these things that we have to offer. So it's just something to consider as well.
Thank you very much, Dan. Thank you.
No problem.
Right, an island you may not have heard of, next and last for this session, Jamaica. Lawrence Jones is going to come up and talk about Jamaica. Oh, yeah, what is the rugby result?
Yeah, how is it looking?
Whoa!
Thank you, Rajan. The Honorable Memuta Pratt, Minister of Tourism and Culture for Sierra Leone, the Honorable Ed Bartlett, Minister of Tourism for Jamaica, Dr. Talid Rafi, Chair of the Advisory Board for ITIC, and Mr. Gerald Lawless, WTTC Ambassador, distinguished guests. I'm Lawrence Jones. I'm the Commercial Attaché at the Jamaican High Commission here in London, and I'm also the European Regional Manager for Jamaica Promotions Corporation, which is the Government of Jamaica Investment Promotions Agency. I wish to thank the ITIC for inviting JAMPRO to participate in this session entitled Financing Tourism and Travel Development Projects. I'm going to give you a short presentation, and I'm hoping to follow it up with a video. JAMPRO works closely with global entrepreneurs seeking to tap into the many investment opportunities in Jamaica. In facilitating foreign direct investment, JAMPRO guides investors through the necessary processes and offers support in partnership with key government agencies and ministries, even after the investment is operational. We work very closely with the Ministry of Tourism to support their investment policies and strategies to attract foreign direct investment in the Jamaican tourism sector. And to that end, JAMPRO markets tourism investment opportunities to European hotel and attraction property developers as well as operators. Today I'll make a very brief presentation regarding financing of tourism projects in Jamaica. Yesterday, the Honorable Edmund Bartlett eloquently highlighted the range of investment opportunities in the Jamaican tourism sector, which include hotel and attraction property developments, knowledge and health and wellness facilities, air and seaport infrastructure, sport, entertainment and shopping complexes, ecotourism attractions, and last but by no means least, gastronomic hubs. When promoting these foreign direct investments, developers and financiers are often concerned about the following issues. Firstly, the commercial viability and sustainability of their projects. Ladies and gentlemen, Jamaica's tourism product is not only beautiful and edgy, but it has a proven, resilient track record. During the heights of the economic crisis that plagued the world in 2008, the entire Caribbean region suffered declines in tourism arrivals, with the exception of Jamaica, which recorded increases during that period. This feat is testament to 1, the quality of the Jamaican tourism product, 2, Minister Bartlett's concerted efforts to increase airlift to Jamaica, and 3, the cutting-edge marketing strategies of the Jamaica Tourist Board, all of which help to ensure the commercial viability of foreign direct investments in Jamaica's tourism sector. Regarding construction risk, investors want certainty regarding the capital expenditure related to a property or infrastructure development. They are comforted by the fact that the Jamaican building and planning laws are modern and transparent. To facilitate investment projects, the government implemented the Tourism Investment Opportunities Shovel Ready initiative, which seeks to directly assist investors by obtaining tacit development approvals, conducting carrying capacity studies, assessing appropriate land utilization, and installation of primary infrastructure. By doing this, the process of investing in Jamaica's tourism industry has been streamlined and expedited. This concept has been very successful and has led to significant growth and a solid pipeline of hotel property developments beyond 2021. Investors also assess the host country's economic risk, having regard to the stability and growth levels of the local economy and specifically the tourism sector. As Minister Bartlett stated yesterday, Jamaica was one of the most indebted nations in the world at circa 140% debt to GDP ratio. Over the past 5 years, the government has taken measures to curtail the national debt, reducing it by almost 1/2. Our success has been recognized by the international monetary agencies such as Fitch and Moody's, as well as the International Monetary Fund. The Jamaican economy has consistently grown over the past 4 years, whilst maintaining the stability of the Jamaican dollar. Tourism, ladies and gentlemen, plays a major role in the local economy. Over the last 2 years, the sector has grown faster than all other sectors in Jamaica. In fact, in 2018, tourism accounted for 50% of Jamaica's foreign exchange inflows and contributed 9% to the GDP. In fact, a recent business and consumer confidence indices published by the Jamaica Chamber of Commerce indicates that Jamaican tourism and hospitality industry shows the highest interest for local businesses to invest, and it generates more significant returns. This has never happened before, where tourism is seen as the preferred industry in Jamaica and arguably the Caribbean. I'm quoting my minister on that one, actually. Moving on to political and judicial risk. Investors will also assess the political risk and its potential impact on their foreign direct investment. Politically, Jamaica is a mature democracy which allows free and fair elections. For over 40 years, we have had smooth transitions from one government to the next. Accordingly, the economy is not negatively impacted by a change of government. More so, both political parties have agreed on the National Development Plan for Jamaica. Accordingly, there is a consensus among political parties regarding the 2030 goals and objectives. Therefore, it is unlikely that the Jamaican government will arbitrarily change laws, which would have a negative impact on investors. Furthermore, the government of Jamaica has never expropriated a foreign investor's asset. In fact, Jamaica is a signatory to numerous international investment agreements with European states, and we accept the jurisdiction of the International Center for Settlement of Investment Disputes. In the unlikely event of a commercial dispute between the investor and the government or a local business, the investor is comforted that Jamaica practices the rule of law. Our judicial system is based on the English common law, and our final court of appeal is the Jamaican Privy Council based here in London. Regarding fiscal incentives, foreign direct investment is attracted to Jamaica in part due to fiscal incentives offered by the government. In fact, the government provides a very comprehensive set of fiscal incentives for hotel property developers and operators, which include 0% import duty on most capital items and raw material required in the construction of a hotel property development, as well as certain hotel industry-related items. Also, the fiscal incentives reduce the hotel operator's corporate income tax by a minimum of 30%. Additionally, tourism attractions also benefit from income tax relief. Investors also benefit from the numerous double taxation treaties between Jamaica and many European countries. Finally, moving on to the infamous ROI and the ability to exit a project in the future. Foreign direct investors have found that Jamaica's tourism sector is very profitable. In fact, we at JAMPRO have worked with investors who have amortized their hotel investment in 6 years. There are very few investment projects across the world that can have a return on investment that allows the investor to get their money back so quickly. Investors may also consider using the Jamaican Stock Exchange as a means of profitably exiting investment projects. Jamaican companies, including foreign-owned hotels and tourism, we're finished. It's the last paragraph. I've timed it. Jamaican companies, including foreign-owned hotels and tourism service providers, which are listed on the Jamaican Stock Exchange, will not be required to pay any corporate tax for the first 5 years of an initial public offering, and only 50% of the prevailing rate will be paid in the subsequent 5 years. The legislation allows hotel operators and tourism service providers to benefit from a tax holiday, as well as having means of selling equity in their companies, thus having a reliable exit strategy for their investment. Also, investors take comfort in knowing that the Jamaican Stock Exchange was the highest performing stock exchange globally in 2015 and last year, 2018, and this is reported by Bloomberg. In closing, I sincerely believe that the Jamaican tourism sector provides a very profitable foreign direct investments, and I invite you to speak with us at JAMPRO to discuss the range of investment opportunities. Thank you for your attention, and we might have a very quick 3-minute video or less.
Have we got time for a 3-minute video? Let's see it.
Okay. I've got to be honest, I have a very strong kinship with Jamaica, and I'm slightly biased here, but you know what? Do you know what? I'm now really interested in the Bahamas. I'm really interested in St. Helena. I'm really interested in Belize, which I have been to too. But thank you to all of you, and thank you to these presentations. We're going to take a quick break now and come back and learn about the fundamental aspects of business in Africa. Enjoy the break. Thank you.